All right, so the last empire I wanted to talk about when it comes to Central and South America is going to be the Inca Empire. And it's significant because it's perhaps the largest in the area. It's larger even than the Aztec, it's larger than the Mayan. And it's interesting because they have a great administration. And the idea is it's actually the empire of the four lands. And so their capital city is going to be Cusco. And we're talking, it's up in the Andes. Now, they're the last existing big civilization or empire that is going to be conquered by the Spaniards when they come in. And it takes the Spaniards, I believe, almost 30 years to conquer them because they're so spread out. They're very Romanesque because they're actually the remains of two other empires. There's actually a North and a South empire. What's going to happen is they're going to combine them. We're going to create the Inca Empire itself. And that'll be significant because it's built on an already sturdy foundation. What's significant is you go into Cusco, you are up there at the top, and leading out of Cusco in four different directions is going to be highways. They have already created highways here. And so they're going to be significant, and the highways go to the four different cardinal points of the empire itself. The empire is going to be a unification of a lot of different people. So they call it the Inca Empire, but it's a unification of a lot of different ethnic sorts around the northwest South America. So it's going to be portions of Colombia, it's going to be portions of Chile, it's going to be portions of a whole bunch of different areas, Venezuela, up in that area, knitted together by this affiliation. What's unique about them is where they can do some great engineering, that they're going to be responsible in some cases for building aqueducts miles long to move water to places. That they do some, because they're so high up in the Andes, that they're going to have to go ahead and terrace their fields, and so they build a variety of walls. But they're not using beasts of burden. The largest beasts they have are going to be llamas, are going to be alpacas, and yet they're going to be able to move stones that are tons. They're going to be able to fit these walls together tightly with this fantastic masonry without actually using cement to go ahead and build these walls and these terraces. That they're going to build some fantastic not sculptures, but architecture, using their ability for engineering. And so it's significant because it's long lasting. You can still find many of their cities. You can still find some of the walls that are intact up there. What else is unusual about them is, although they have a spoken language, that they're going to speak Quechua. What's significant is they don't have a written language. And where Quechua is the language of trade, the language of administration, there's actually almost better than 100 different dialects that are spoken, but this is the internal language. There's also not a set form of money, set form of payment. It seems that most of the empire works on the idea of obligation and exchange via a barter system. So every spot in the empire, whether you're in the north or whether you're in the south, the east or the west, each area has a specialty that they supply to the mean, and they are exchanged other goods that they can't produce for themselves. And so it's interesting. In addition to that, they also, at their height, have the largest army, because all adult males, of a certain age are required to become soldiers. And so even though they don't have necessarily better weaponry, they have a massive numbers, because depending on what period and who you're reading, conservatively, there's anywhere from easily, 2 million to upwards, in some cases, I think of 14 to 20 million as part of the empire at its height. they are not going to make that leap to the Iron Age either, although they are capable of some fantastic metallurgy. They're very good at blending certain metals. They're going to get to bronze. They're going to go ahead and get to copper and tin. They're going to go ahead and be sculpting and doing some things with silver. And gold as well, and they're going to create some interesting alloys, but most of the time it's decorative. Most of the time it is for temple purposes. They are going to incorporate some a little bit later on in the way of bronze into weapons, but not the entire weapon, not of armor itself. They're going to use bits and pieces. So they'll use a club with a star-shaped setting on it, and the points of the star will be made of something like bronze. They're going to go ahead and use bolas, right? The balls that are on the rope tied together that are for throwing and lassoing people. They're going to go ahead and use spears. They're going to go ahead and use the atlatl that we've talked about, which is a spear throw for increased force and distance. But they're not traditionally going to use too much in the way of metal for their weaponry. So they're very Neolithic in that idea. We know that they're going to still plant the Three Sisters, but they're going to have an addition in certain areas. The addition is going to be potatoes. They're going to go ahead and incorporate potatoes and create something they call chula, which is a potato mash mixture that can be dried out at very cold temperatures, almost freeze-dried. And so it's very high in protein, very high in starch, so it makes a really good long-term storage and journey food, and it can be used for a variety of things in addition to the Three Sisters that they're using. Again, they're largely vegetarian, just like some of the other societies here. In South America, they are definitely going to do some hunting. There are always some influences there, but it's interesting that they're going to hunt not for food, but more, hunt for sport along that particular line. What else have they got? I don't want to get into a whole bunch of religion and things along that line, but let's just say they're more of a loose federation. And even though they do wage quite a bit of war, normally it's not prisoners, normally it's not slaves, but it's more about trade, expanding trade. And very often, rather than conquering, they're going to negotiate settlements for the peace of the empire, for the peace of the people, because what they want is they want trade, and so it's significant. Beyond that, I'm just going to go ahead and leave that. They're monarchical. They are going to have a king. Their king is going to be the Sapa Inca. Right, he's going to be the chieftain. He's almost a god king. The fact that he's considered a descendant of the sun. Inti is their sun god, and their Sapa Inca is considered a descendant of the sun god himself. They're a pretty strong administrative empire. They're knitted together very well in dealing with the highways, dealing with the roads, dealing with the supply system. One of the interesting things about them is, short of a written language, they have a way of keeping records, and the records, the system is called the Quipu, Q-U-I-P-U, and what it is a system of knots. And the problem we have with it is for us it's undecipherable because the people who created it are no longer there. But what they do is there's several strings that are tied in a variety of knots. There's a different number of knots, a different style of knots. They use this for record keeping as well as communication. Unfortunately, when the Spanish take over and wipe people out, the idea, or at least the accurate count of what the Quipu does and how it communicates, is kind of lost in the mess as far as well. But that was their main system of record keeping along the way. All right, I'm going to go ahead and cut this off here. We still need to talk about the North American Native American nation, so I'll go ahead and do that, and then we'll finish up. Thank you.